I'm an Army brat, a child of an Army officer. When I was 10, my family was stationed in South Korea. Our post was nestled against a mountain on the outskirts of a city called Daegu. Exploring the residential zone of the post, my brother and I found a storm drain that was cut into the wall that separated our side from the Korean civilian side. Through the grill that covered the storm drain passageway, we could see a Korean village. It was another world, so different than ours. After a while, we attracted the attention of some village children who came over to examine us. We giggled shyly as we looked at each other across the short space of the grill-covered opening. So different, yet the same. Several years ago, my husband traveled to New England on a business trip. While eating at a small-town diner, he struck up a conversation with the man sitting next to him, drawn together by their love of really, really good pie. Over dinner, my husband learned that the man was a father, and they spoke of the challenges of being a parent, sitting side by side at the counter. So different, and yet the same. We saw in our story for all ages the photographer whose project was to take portraits of complete strangers posed together. He found that the simple act of the strangers spending 10 minutes in close proximity triggered feelings of connection and even caring. All of those strangers, so different and yet the same. This seemingly innate ability to connect surely must be hardwired in us. The human heart has an amazing capacity to expand our circle of caring to include others. Evolutionary biologists have shown that we are social animals who have naturally evolved to care for each other. And empathy seems to be the glue of connection. Empathy gives us the ability to identify with feelings, thoughts, or attitudes of others. It helps us look outward, outside of ourselves. The greater the ability we have to feel for others, the stronger the bonds of connection we can build. And it's obvious that this drive for connection with other humans has benefits for survival. In groups, we humans are more able to handle adverse situations than if we were on our own. It makes sense to band together, to create kinship. But beyond survival, we know that we can do more, build more, achieve more. Together, we are more. Well, some good news. Studies show that empathy can be cultivated. Our brain's neural circuitry is malleable and can be rewired. We can practice putting ourselves in someone else's shoes to reinforce empathetic wiring. Many studies have shown that volunteering for good causes can change your brain. Even mindfulness practices that include loving kindness meditation can increase our capacity for empathy and expand our hearts. As we cultivate the ability to feel for others, we naturally become concerned about their welfare. The line between them and us thins and blurs, and we begin to see across our differences into our shared humanity. Strikingly, the studies of psychologist Paul Piff show that as people's level of wealth increased, their feelings of compassion and empathy decreased. Apparently, money can make people mean. Wealth gives people the ability to remove themselves from suffering of others, and it is that detachment that makes us less empathetic. Detachment leads to disconnection. Anything that allows us to separate ourselves from others will allow us to discount them and forget them. Fortunately, this loss of empathy need not be permanent. Paul Piff found that small nudges restored subjects' levels of egalitarianism and empathy. These nudges could be simple reminders of the needs of others. A 1-minute video showing people in poverty woke his subjects up and re-engaged their hearts. Small reminders can change society, and our actions can serve as reminders. Our behavior influences others around us. Like a pebble being dropped in water, our behavior can ripple out positive or negative. Every time we interact with another being, we have the choice to be awake and aware, to practice civility and respect. Now notice I said practice because it takes effort. It is not easy. It is way easier to tune out and keep ourselves busy and distracted, to become disconnected, to let our hearts shrink and our circle of caring contract. In the absence of awareness and accountability, communities can become exclusionary, inward-facing, and destructive. It takes intention and attention to build and sustain a healthy society. We need constant reminders to keep our hearts open, to cultivate empathy for the other. It takes social frameworks that set expectations and enforce civil behavior to keep us on track, not for the sake of political correctness, but for the sake of human decency. Incivility, disrespect, and dismissiveness can degrade and ultimately destroy a healthy society. So how do we stay awake? How do we avoid all the distractions of our day that so temptingly keep our attention elsewhere? Well, healthy religion can provide a moral framework to call us into community and provide us with guideposts. And I'm not singling out any one religion as better than the others. I like Karen Armstrong's assessment of theologies in her book, The Spiral Staircase, My Climb Out of Darkness. She states, if your understanding of the divine made you kinder and more empathetic and impelled you to express sympathy in concrete acts of loving kindness, this was a good theology. But if your notion of God made you unkind, belligerent, cruel, self-righteous, or if it led you to kill in God's name, it was bad theology. Our Unitarian Universalist movement creates one such intentional framework for us to come together to do the collaborative work of creating a more just and peaceful world. Our 7 UU principles are a reminder of our common purpose and help us to focus our practice of being together and working together. Now you can find our principles on the back of your order of service. And if you get them out, what I'd like to do is I'd like us to gather a moment and read them out loud together. So as Unitarian Universalists, we promote and affirm, 1, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. 2, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. 3, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. 4, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. 5, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. 6, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And 7, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. Our principles are not a creed. I noticed that in printed there's an 8th little star with nothing. I think that symbolically shows that it is not cast in concrete. We evolve, we learn, revelation is not sealed. But our principles serve as a moral guide in our journey. They urge us to keep our hearts and mind open in our daily lives. And we take these principles outside these walls and into the world. As individuals, Unitarian Universalists span the whole spiritual spectrum. Our religious movement is multi-faith, requiring us to connect across our differences, learn from one another, and work together. By coming together for fellowship, spiritual growth, and social justice work, we practice being accepting of different paths while celebrating our shared values. We are different, yet the same. Now, a few days ago, my sermon pretty much ended there. Since then, I have a need to add an epilogue. I believe humans need to find communities that call us to our highest selves and hold us accountable in love. I believe that spiritual communities can do this. I'm not talking about the ones that exist to make us feel good about ourselves, or to provide Sunday entertainment, or just social get-togethers. I am talking about faith communities that challenge us, shake us up, wake us up, and remind us of the work that is needed to be done to heal the wounded family of humankind. And importantly, these faith communities must give us concrete ways to take part in this messy, painful, and sacred work of healing and transformation. Our churches must both be a prophetic voice and instruments of transformation. The work of reconciliation and healing is difficult and often painful. We must be willing to be vulnerable, looking at ourselves and at our society with clear eyes and open hearts and lots of love. Here at Mount Diablo Unitarian Church, we are taking part in Beloved Conversations, where people come together in a safe and sacred space to explore the existence and the effects of institutionalized racism. It is a necessary step towards healing our wounded family. And by the way, you can hear more about Beloved Conversations Sunday after next on July 24th. I titled my sermon, The Power of One, because I wanted to convince you that each of us can have great influence on our communities. The reality is transformation of our community, our society, our world requires all of us. It will not be accomplished by any politician, any political party, any one group. Each and every one of us has to do the work. We have to get up, off and out of our seats, and engage with our neighbors, to get to know them, to try to understand them. We need to grow our hearts and connect. It will only be through the collective behavior of all of us that we will transform our world, and may we be the ones to make it so.